I love it. $800 for a class, and then we'll give you a stand truck. It just blows my mind. Okay. So shifting here to crime, obviously we see a lot of violence out there, and yes, the violence very often is drug related. So these are the questions that we as criminal justice professionals have to answer. It's kind of chicken and the egg here. Does the drug use lead to criminal behavior? Does crime itself, doing crime, lead to the use of drugs? Or is there some other factor that links crime and drug use? And from a criminological perspective, they don't have the whole answer yet. Okay, it's kind of like the whole juvenile thing or poverty and crime. We've got an abundance of research out there, none of which is really greatly definitive. Well, maybe sort of kind of this, but maybe sort of kind of that too. All right, need to know these 3 categories of drugs that are involved with crime, or crime that's involved with drugs, however you want to look at it. Okay, 3 categories. Need to know all 3. Drug-defined crimes. This is the possession, the sale, the distribution, manufacturing. Okay, specifically about drugs themselves. Doesn't matter which drug, it's just drug involved. Very specific. Our second category, drug-related, just as the title says, the drug contributes to the commission of a crime. So, an addict is going through $300 worth of heroin a day, but of course, since they're an addict, they don't have a job, which means they don't have the money to buy their drugs, so they commit acts of prostitution, robbery, whatever, to get money to pay for their drugs. Drug-related crime. Okay. The bottom one is where things get a little bit sticky, but this is where we say drugs and criminal behavior are inextricably linked. It's part of what we call a deviant lifestyle. So this is our drug-using lifestyle. Generally, this is heavier duty use here. We're not talking about somebody who's smoking a joint. Okay? We're talking about that person using $300 worth of 8 balls a day. Okay? So drug-defined, drug-related, drug-using lifestyle. I'm sure you understand the 3 of them. So let's get into a little more specific. Drug-defined, pretty uniform. Okay, marijuana is probably the biggest argument. Some it's perfectly legal. Others it's legal medically. Others it's still perfectly not legal. So it just depends on what jurisdiction. But the rest of them, everybody pretty much agrees. You can't be having heroin, you can't have cocaine or crack or so on and so forth. So obviously from a law enforcement perspective, we make a lot of drug-defined arrests. Possession, use, distribution, so on and so forth. And when you talk federally, the majority of the inmates behind bars in a federal prison are there because of drugs. Certainly not the case for state, but it is for federal. Okay. Federal Bureau of Prison. And you can look it up, it's on their website if you want. But drug defined, meaning use, possession, sales, distribution, manufacturing. Okay. Not a lot of heroin users. It's pretty much everything else. Now, drug related, this is how we break it down. Crime is committed because you're under the influence. You're drunk, you're driving. Well, being drunk isn't necessarily illegal. Driving isn't illegal, but it's the fact you're drunk and you're driving is what is the illegality. Okay? Crime is committed to get that money to purchase drugs. Back to our prostitute, that's the only way she can earn money to pay for her drugs every day. Or participating in drug trafficking. You'll find most high-level drug people, the top of the cartel type thing, have nothing but contempt for drug users. They see it as a means to make a lot of money, but they don't think very highly of those that use their product. Right. So trafficking. Questions so far? Now, when we try and connect drugs and violence, there's different ways we can look at it. Pharmacological violence. You're drunk and you get in, oh, there's nothing more fun than watching a bar fight. Especially if both of them are drunk as skunks. I mean, it's just like something out of a little kid's grade school thing, you know, when they do their little bitch that thing. Oh, it's hysterical. Half times we wouldn't bother arresting for a while because it was just fun to watch. Economically compulsive violence. You're trying to get the money to get the drugs. You're committing the violent crime simply because that gets you a good chunk of cash to go buy your drugs. Systemic violence is actually part of the drug world. Somebody tries to take over your territory, you need to take them out of the picture. Drug person gets disrespected. Oh, we don't allow that, so we need to remove that person. Or doesn't pay for their drugs. Yep, we're going to have to take it out of his hide. Because if one person is allowed to get away with not paying, guess what? Others are going to assume they don't have to pay either. Okay? So different ways we can express the violence that is connected to drugs. They call it the Goldstein tripartite model. I would never ask you that name. And then our last one again. Here's some examples. Forgot this was in here. Driving under the influence, I use that as the example. Embezzling money. Okay. Woman came into our jail. She'd embezzled about $27,000 from the people she worked for to pay for an ever-growing drug habit. And she just happened to be the accountant that was in charge of the books. So she wrote checks to herself. Kind of obvious, but nonetheless. And then the prostitution, I gave you that. Okay. So different ways that people can involve themselves in violence. All right, so drug using lifestyle. Once they get far enough along in drug use and they are growing tolerance, increasing addiction, then everything becomes about the drugs. It's where they lose their job. Now they got to get money. Even if they have a family, they maybe steal from the family. So they start pushing family away, they lose the job, so on and so forth. Anything for the drugs. And eventually they sell themselves. They sold everything else, now they sell themselves. And this also creates another potential problem because as you get involved deeper and deeper in the drug trade, you start hanging out with, sort of kind of not nice people that do a lot of this stuff and may get you to do more than you had originally even planned on doing with that thought of that big score. I'll make $50,000 if I go do this. Ooh, that'll keep me in drugs for at least a couple of weeks. Okay. Now, there are different ways to look at this drug-using lifestyle. So, let's go through a couple of them. Originally called the medical model, now they call it the enslavement model. These are the terms. But these are the ones that got involved in drugs, not necessarily directly. An athlete, very high-level football player, let's say, gets severely injured and is put on pain meds. And of course now we have a huge pharmacy of some pretty strong pain meds. Unfortunately, most of them produce addiction pretty quickly. And that's where the path downward starts. Okay? Sometimes it's because they're living in poverty and they go to school and they see other kids who are wearing fill in the blank, whatever it was, think high school for crying out loud. If you weren't wearing, we had these little pants. They were called dittos. And your shoes were these one type of shoes called the wallabies. You didn't have dittos and wallabies, just go shoot yourself, okay? You needed to go die somewhere because, oh my God, you're not wearing this. What is wrong with you? Okay, you're not fit to live. Okay, is not high school exactly this? Okay, you better be wearing what you're supposed to be wearing. Yeah, oh my God, she has an iPhone 10. Oh my God. Doesn't she know the 15 is out? Are you abnormal? Welcome to high school. Okay, and actually a lot of times it starts in junior high, forget high school. Okay, so everybody wants to fit in. Right. So if I don't have said dittos and wallabies, well, there are ways I can get them. May not be quite the legal way to get them. Okay. Doesn't have to be necessarily poverty, but just someone struggling, a family that's struggling, and one desperate to fit in starts sliding sideways into negative things in that attempt to fit in. And sometimes it's just a bad thing happens and coping happens through drugs or alcohol. And by the time they realize it, they can't get out of it. They're too far into it. So it can hit people that weren't someone looking to be a drug dealer or an addict, but they just took a few steps the wrong way and things went bad very quickly. Now the criminal model is a little bit different. This one makes the assumption that anybody who uses drugs are simply not law-abiding citizens in the first place, never were, never will be. They're already criminals before they delve their way into drug use. Maybe they have some sort of predisposition towards being criminals. That goes back to that whole way back when mindset that there was such a thing as the bad seed, born bad type individual. And those in criminal lifestyles, drug use for the most part is accepted. Now there are certain ones that don't, but for the most part it's accepted. So you smoke a little weed, you drink, whatever it is that you drink. Okay, whatever. As long as you're still willing to do the crimes that the group does, I don't care what you use or do. All right. Now the last one, a lot of people like this one. They call it the intensification model, and it's just a combination. That once you step down the drug use road, it's going to perpetuate your activity in crime. Okay? And the more you're involved in crime, the more that supports and intensifies your use of drugs. So it becomes this cycle where both kind of revolve around each other. With the presumption, though, they're criminals before they start the drug use. So this doesn't fit those that get involved in drugs first. Okay? And when you stop using drugs, then you stop doing crimes. So there's two big assumptions to this one, and they're struggling a lot, especially with the second one as far as proving it. What evidence we have is limited. Okay. Questions about the three models? So, from the beginning, somebody figured out, obviously, we need to measure this stuff. So how do we measure it? So one is more about the kids and their involvement in juvenile delinquent type crimes, and then adults. So we had to shift the two because what motivates one is not necessarily automatically over to the other one. So let's start with the kids. All right. One of the first, risk behavior surveillance. It's done every other year on odd years, and it's a survey of high school students nationwide and asks them about all kinds of risk-taking behavior. So it's not just drug use, it's alcohol and tobacco and sexual risk, because we know that's related as well. Someone who is sexually active by the time they are 12, 13, 14 are far more likely to be involved in other things as well. Okay, so they ask about all of this. Is self-report, so we've got issues right off the get-go with self-reporting. You have to take it with a little bit of a grain of salt. People can lie, they can exaggerate, they can fail to turn it in, minimize what they want to say, okay? But it still gives us a place from which to start. From the adult side, we have Adam. People who come into jail arrested for anything. It didn't matter what they were arrested for. And they would be tested for drugs. We just wanted to know how many people that came into custody for anything was currently or had a history of drug use. And the numbers were kind of astounding. Far higher than anything we had previously looked at. Because we were looking at people who were arrested for drugs, for alcohol, and ignoring all the other arrestees. Well, now it was everybody. And drugs were all over the place. We know those that make it to prison compared to jail are far more likely to have used drugs, and it will continue behind bars. Something that the public still has trouble accepting, that people behind bars will continue to use drugs. It's a whole cottage industry. The amount of drugs flowing into prisons and jails is insane. And now we got drones dropping it in for them. Lovely. Okay. But drugs are all over any institution. Then, of course, we have NCVS, which is our victimization here. Okay. And it asks, for those people who answer yes, they have been a victim of a violent crime, and then they ask about the crime and all that. But they also ask this question: did they think the person who committed the crime against them, I'm saying I was raped, do you believe that rapist was under the influence of alcohol and or other illicit drugs at the time of the attack? Now, granted, these people don't have any training. Okay, it's just a personal perception. But again, it gave us more information. That's the idea behind all these surveys. They're different. They target different populations. They get different answers. But you take that stuff and put it all together to get kind of a congregate answer. Anyways, so what do we find out from all of this? Which came first, the chicken or the egg? We have no clue. We have no definitive answer. Sometimes the drug use comes first. Sometimes the crime comes first. So it's going to come down to the individual and why they made that original decision to get involved in crime or in drug use. We know the two are absolutely positively 100% linked. But why they went to one or the other first, we don't have a concrete answer. Not at all. Unfortunately. When it comes to the ladies, females are less likely, although they're making a concerted effort to catch up. But in general, women are less likely to commit the violent crimes, far more likely property drugs. So for female offenders, in all the research, it comes back to the same path. Some sort of trauma, whether it started as a baby, a young child, a teenager, doesn't matter. There's some sort of trauma in there somewhere, whatever it may be. To cope with said trauma, they reach out to drugs, which puts them in contact with the system. That is present in more than 80% of female offenders. So it's a solid path, absolute solid path for women. Questions so far? Now, how many had research methods? A few of you? Okay. Keep in mind, everything we do with these surveys is based on statistics, and we've got this lovely place, the Bureau of Justice Statistics. You want to talk some statistical dweebs? Oh my God, these guys are insane, but they can also make statistics dance. You want me to tell you statistics, statistically, I'll get that word out, that this causes that, I can put enough garbage into the program and make it come out and look that way. Okay? So statistics can only go so far. It doesn't always match 100% of reality. And you got to trust that what was put into those statistical programs was correct and accurate. So statistics have to be with a grain of salt. Now, the first Adam program got canceled because they said we didn't need to do it anymore and we had no money anyways. And everybody involved in criminological theory went, you guys are outside your head. We need that program back. So now we have Adam 2. They test, again, once the person's in custody. So we show, obviously, that the person had drugs in their system. What we don't know and can't prove from that test, that the person was under the influence, whether the drug's influence caused the actions, we don't know. Okay, all it can say is at the time of the test, this is what we found. And that's it. Marijuana is constantly found. Generally, marijuana is considered one that kind of mellows you out, gives you the munchies and the dry mouth. Okay? But we keep finding it in arrests. So the beginning thought here is that those that have the marijuana have been using other things. So it's a combination rather than just purely the marijuana. So again, alcohol definitely increases violence potential because it releases inhibitions. But back to that bar fight. Okay, they lose a lot of their abilities if they're drunk enough. Okay, watching a couple of drunks that if they weren't drunk could probably kill each other, but watching them trying to fight where they can barely stand, and it's like something out of a comic book. So yeah, alcohol is linked to violence, but more usually where it becomes a problem is when it's mixed with other things. Then we can really get ugly in this. So we know it has a causal relationship with violence, but it just depends on when, how much, with what, and so on. We've all known there are happy drunks. There are, oh my God, the whiny, crying drunks that you want to kick to the curb. And then you have the really angry drunks that just turn into AHs after the first beer. You want to hang them up by their toenails. So everybody reacts to it differently. Okay. Now, on our other side here are economically compulsive crime. Okay. Crack cocaine, they had to get to the products because you can't get the Sudafed anymore, so you got to get it other ways. So that's very much still a problem. Property crimes, most of you guys don't have your own personal home that you purchased and have to purchase homeowners insurance for, but insurance has gone nowhere but up because of, and one of the problems is robberies. If you happen to live in an area that has had a lot of home invasion type robberies and whatnot, your insurance costs are going to be absolutely insane. If you live in an area where cars get stolen, anybody have a Honda Accord of any year? That's good. Don't get one. They have been the #1 stolen car since the day it was first manufactured.
The Honda Accord?
The Honda Accord. It is the #1 stolen car, and it just goes, when you go down the list of the top 5, it's different years of the Honda Accord.
The Hyundais too, right?
Hyundais are up there. Maxima, the Nissan Maxima.
Kia.
No,
Kia Soul.
not Kia. Not Kia. They're not fond of the Korean cars. Even the Hyundai, it's only some certain ones for parts.
Yeah.
But that Honda Civic, that's another one. Honda, I'll get to you in a sec. Honda Accords, let's say you spent $30,000 to buy the car new back when. That same car, when broken down for sale in black market, would sell for $50. All the parts put together sell for $50. People could not keep them. Here, on the truck side of it, Ford F-150. #1 stolen truck, again, pretty much since it was manufactured. So if you have one of those models that are stolen all the time, expect your insurance to be through the freaking roof. All right.
Oh, why the Hyundai Accord?
Well liked and very expensive. It's kind of hard to steal Rolls Royces.
Yeah.
Sonatas, yeah, that's part of the Hyundai
Mhm.
lineup. And it's, okay, yeah, they steal a few. It's not that they don't. But the Accord and the Civic, the Maxima, what's the other one? Somewhere in that group. It's another one of those. Okay. And I mean, they'll sell them new, used, whatever. Okay. They go pretty quick. And they can take, watch Gone in 60 Seconds, in less than 24 hours, they can have an entire car broken down to its component parts, and all you find is a burned out frame. That's all that's left. Less than 24 hours. And if they have a team doing it, less than 10. Meanwhile, your parts are on a container being shipped somewhere. Okay. It's very fast. Very, very fast. That's why they made the title of the movie based on the original, not the new make, the original Gone in 60 Seconds. That's how fast they can steal a car. Very easily. Anyways, pharmacy robberies, okay? Now you're seeing more and more protection for pharmacies. I had to tell my vets. They didn't know about it yet. All the cops knew about it, but they didn't. Ketamine. Well, ketamine's a very strongly used animal tranquilizer. So all the vet, and of course, since we're dosing very large beasts, you have large amounts of ketamine. Ooh, I can get a big bottle from the vet's truck. And who has security on a vet's truck? They don't. Now they do. Most of them won't even carry ketamine on their trucks anymore. It'll be back at their office, and that's it. Okay? Because of that problem. People will steal it right off the truck. Now, systemic type crime is going to be around three major drugs: heroin, obviously, cocaine, and meth, which includes the whole cocaine crack stuff. Okay? How expensive it gets, it's not unusual for these people to have a $300-400 a day habit. Stealing will net them about 10%. So if I steal a $50 bottle of liquor and I go to sell it, I might get $5 or $10 for it. So how much do you have to steal to get that $300 to pay every day for your habit? For those prostituting themselves, because they're not exactly high-rolling prostitutes here, and they're doing blowjobs on the side of the road. So we're talking $5 to $10 a piece. Okay? You're going to be working hard there, darling, for a very long period of time. You get one day's dose. If you get paid, okay, they know what they're dealing with, so maybe they drive off without paying. Maybe all of a sudden the supply dries up for some reason. A good interdiction, we get that $100 million thing where we have to put it out on national TV. We got 6 sets of tables with all the guns and the drugs and everything that we got, and show it to everybody. Oh, we're so proud of ourselves. So that interrupts the supply for a while. And what's remaining goes through the roof. These guys aren't gentlemen. If I've got the last 5 doses in the city, oh, by God, I'm getting $100,000 per dose here, okay? And now those guys that are about to go through withdrawals are going to do whatever it takes to get that dose. Murder, rape, robbery, they don't care. All they care is about not going through withdrawals. So this is where we get into this idea of interactional circumstances, trying to make people understand that drug use and crime go together just by the very nature of what they are. You cannot be a drug user of any time or level and stay away from using crime. I guess unless you're a multi-billionaire and you can hide in your penthouse somewhere, but even that, sooner or later, the dude's going to run out of money. Somebody's got to go get his dope for him. So he's got to pay somebody to go get his dope, and then they get arrested. Now he's going to find somebody else, yada, yada, yada. He's going to run out of money. Okay? So distribution is built upon the ability of recognizing people use drugs, and this idea of drug dealers then is defined by that same criminality. So the two are so inexplicably linked, trying to undo it is almost impossible. And in my mind, it is impossible. Absolutely is impossible. Good spot to stop.